work out with that thing.
This is actually a true Mazda crankshaft puller. I guess they made it so it would last through an atomic bomb. This is one serious piece of metal. It has to weigh at least 25 pounds. It's incredible.
On a 3-rotor, this part pulls off of the...
Yes, this is going to pull right out. This lobe is going to slide right out right now. A 3-rotor essentially is a 13B from the thick intermediate back,
right,
and then it's got a stub in the front. A 4-rotor, by Mazda specs, would have 2 fat intermediate housings, one here and one here, and have the same mechanism in the front and the back. The 4-rotors, by the Australian 4-rotors, which is what everybody's using nowadays, they don't have thick intermediate housings, and they figured out a very, very ingenious way of mounting the stationary gear by machining both faces of the side housing. It's really an incredible piece of engineering that they did, but that allows you to build a 4-rotor engine out of 13B parts.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got this guy tight. We got this guy butted down. I forget the name of it. It's some kind of engineering term. Pull the engine off. I'm going to pull this keyway out because we don't want to scratch the bearing. 747-3733. Well, that's the reason why that keyway was so difficult to get out. Somebody was in a hurry building this motor, had some shit in it, scratched the hell out of the crank on the inside. Thank God nothing on the journal. In fact, you could see the groove nicked right there where my finger's at. If you can catch it from this side, you can see the light right there. You can see the mark.
Yeah.
Usually those keyways come up pretty quick, pretty easy. So anyway, now we unstack it as if you were unstacking a regular 13B. This was really the more difficult part. When I take out remove the housings, just remove the keyway. I like to take out the stationary gear because it allows me more flexibility to find the dowels versus having the stationary gear with the bearing, and you're playing with it here, you're playing with it there. You're actually squeezing the bearing ever so slightly, but however you cut it, you're still disforming it somewhat. So I'm going to pull the stationary gear out, then we'll pull the rear plate. And evenly pull it out. Again, those bearings are absolutely beautiful. This is a brand new front stationary gear, and this is a good used rear stationary gear. So somewhere along the line, someone ran out of parts and replaced it with a 3rd generation rear gear, which is exactly the same. Perfectly normal to do this. It's just that there's an inconsistency of brand new pieces here. Take out the bolts that we left holding the 13B part of the engine in place. We have broken them loose before, so they're not even snug, they're just on there. to hold the thing like a tape. It's essential that it's held together evenly, not tight on one side and not so much on the other, because again, all that, those minor variations are simply acting on the bearings that are much softer than the crankshaft. So you have to be just as careful tearing it apart as putting it together. Going to parts washer. Rotor in question. Hello, that was wonderful. This is the rotor that has all the pitting all over the place. It's been real bad. And once we clean it, it'll show a lot better, but it's
That's from the water sitting
yeah.
inside it?
Those are the Ionetti ceramic seals.
Has that rotor been lightened too? Or
Yes. These are racing bead parts, both rotor housings and rotors were supplied by Racing Bead for these engines. This is essentially, I keep saying, but essentially these are basically bone stock 3-rotor engines with peripheral housings. The rotors have a little bit of work done to them. For 8,400 RPM, it's more than necessary. Street engines, unbalanced, bone stock, turn 8,400 RPM.
Yeah.
So with a little bit of help and a little bit of breathing, they made the regulation. That's what these engines make so much power, free power. It's just incredible. Tapping.
See, I did this one about a year and a half ago. The epoxy underneath the silicone is immaculate. This is just a layer of silicone for extra sealing.
protect it.
But you can see that it's you know,
That it's
perfect.
Yeah.
The other stuff is totally deteriorated.
The little tricks that make the difference, right?
Ooh, this motor actually ate something. Yeah, well, I have a special polishing process that I developed through the years that will take 90% of that, but if you can feel it with your fingernail, that means it's below the surface. Now in reality, as the rotor is rotating, it's below the spark plug. On the compression side, it's not going to affect it. On the trailing side, it's an expansion. It might blow a little bit back into the intake. That's chatter mark right there. You see those lines going like this?
Yeah.
And you know why that happened? Because of not chamfering the ports. You know, you've seen me chamfer those.
Yeah, so they're nice and smooth.
I spent days giving it proper chamfer. That's what it is. The apex seal went pop, pop, pop.
Catches against it?
Yep.
Or?
It's like tripping over a sidewalk. But chatter marks are really caused by ignition, and they're mainly seen around the compression area. Yeah, these housings, there you go, there's some chatter marks right there. Yeah, this motor began to chatter because it was running so hot. That's why it failed the first time. See how the story develops? I said a little while ago, why would the engine be leaking water if it was torqued properly? You know, I thought, well, maybe it wasn't torqued properly. Not the case. The fact that there's chatter marks in that housing, you see them right there, they're horizontally, means that this rotor got so hot that it began to detonate, pre-ignite, causing the apex seals to go bounce against it because it's uncontrolled combustion. caused by excessive heat, not enough cooling around the spark plug area. The timing has been the same all along. We'll see now number 2 when we take it apart that it will not have this. So that's how the story, the forensics behind it, you can see what actually took place. That's where that cooling system that I invented comes into play. Instead of cooling the engine end to end, as that water gets to that number 3 rotor, it's boiling hot. And with my axial flow cooling system, I cool each rotor individually, where the water from this one doesn't flow into that one, doesn't flow into that one. And with a distribution feed manifold and an exhaust manifold, and that keeps the engine running evenly, heat-wise, rotor to rotor. Yeah, this housing has taken a beating and a half. It'll still work perfect. I mean, look at all that chatter. Look at all that chatter.
Well,
Remember that I said it's on the compression cycle?
yeah.
There it is. That's what caused your water failure. It got so hot that it distorted the housing enough, and in the meantime, your evidence of chatter marks are right there. Because now we have to slide the narrow intermediate out. Go ahead, pull it. Put the pin right there. Now we have to tear this part apart just like you would tear down a 13B. So the normal side ports, since it's turned into a peripheral port engine, the normal side ports are blocked off. Valves, and tap the ones from this housing back in. See how it's stepping out? So that it doesn't. Okay, now it's completely out. So what I do, I put this at about number 2 and use my belly, my waist to hold the crank and twist the housing out. It's gotta come out a little bit. Crank it up. See? That housing has no watermarks. That face is full of watermarks. Got everything clean on this end. Immaculate. Rather than laying it down, I'm gonna lay it down on something real soft. But I have a very old school way of holding these crankshafts. And stand it up. That's not going nowhere. There's your 3 2mm ceramic ionized seals. Another racing beat rotor, and balance them instead of changing all 3. I'll grind the gear down like I do with all my rotors. Check the clearance, make sure that they have been clearanced. They look like they've been clearanced. I'll check the width, and if they're not to my specs, I'll narrow them down a little bit more. You know, Racing Beat does great work.
taken too much weight off of it because they haven't rebalanced it. This is just the factory balance
Right.
that when they brought it down, see they don't, you know, I go much deeper than this. You know, they're banking on, and I don't mean just this from racing me, there's a lot of people that have the same philosophy. They bank on the fact that you reduce the weight to a certain point, and because of that, you're putting less stress on the crankshaft, which is absolutely true. Problem happens is when you start going to very, very, very high RPMs, because the centrifugal loads go up exponentially, not linearly. At 4,000 RPM versus 8,000, which is double the RPM, your mechanical loads went up by not twice, but 16 times. Yeah, I mean, these, you know, by Grand Am only allowed them to twist these motors up to, I think it was 8,400 RPM. They didn't even get to 60, 65% of their potential. You know, they were just like in fast cruising mode. See it right there?
Yeah.
That's. It looks like they got.
Thing again?
Yeah, it looks like they got some 10-year-old in there to go and port on racing houses. But you see, just exactly as I said it was going to be. Absolutely no chatter marks on that housing, none.
Right. Why is that?
Boiling water around.
Warped the housing, and that's what caused
Exactly.
the water leakage.
Exactly. It was so hot, for whatever reason, who knows? So hot that it created pre-ignition. That pre-ignition caused the apex seals to bounce and created chatter marks. And again, the reason why we took it apart was because it got so hot that it was leaking water into number 3, so it just goes along. Number 2 and number 1 have no chatter marks whatsoever. I can clean up 90% of that, and we'll go with these houses again. We have no time to build new ones.
Are you going to cut the water grooves in them?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
What about the axial flow system?
No.
No time for that?
I need the car to route it, and this is not my engine. You know, we'll take it to the best level for what they're going to do. But when they ask me to, you know, build them an engine from the ground up, then we'll do it. With all the bells and the CLR bells and whistles.
Hold on.